You know, when we look at a massive skyscraper in a city downtown, there's this expectation of structural logic. You look at the gleaming glass, the colossal steel beams, and you just inherently know there's a massive, incredibly deep concrete foundation underground holding all of that up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's engineering. It's rational.
Right, it has to follow the laws of physics. It's entirely grounded in reality.
Exactly. You don't look at a 100-story building and think, oh, I could build that in my backyard with some 2x4s and a really good work ethic.
Yeah, that would be completely ridiculous.
But then, you step into the world of fitness media, and suddenly we are completely ignoring the foundation. We're looking at these powering, larger-than-life human beings, and we're handed a magazine or a social media post that says, hey, if you just eat this specific type of oatmeal and do these 5 exercises, you can build a 100-story skyscraper too.
And that is, honestly, the absolute definition of a fitness trap. We are constantly sold the blueprint to the penthouse, but nobody ever mentions the industrial-grade, chemically altered foundation required to actually support that structure.
Which is so true. And by the way, welcome to Radio B-Fifth. I'm so glad we're getting into this today.
Same here. I mean, we have all been there, right? Staring at some massively complicated routine online, feeling like we are failing before we even pick up a weight.
Oh, absolutely. It's overwhelming and, frankly, it's exhausting.
It really is.
But our mission for this deep dive is to cut through all of that noise. We are taking the source material, this detailed analysis of the Schwarzenegger blueprint, specifically looking at reality versus mythology.
Right.
And we're going to separate what is actually actionable and transferable, so the everyday natural lifter, from the biologically impossible mythology that leaves so many people incredibly frustrated.
It is such a vital separation to make because for decades, millions of people have downloaded his workout splits. They've tried to force-feed themselves his diet.
Eating all the chicken and rice.
Exactly, all of it. They've watched Pumping Iron hoping to unlock whatever magic made him look like that. But we want to unpack the missing link that the industry usually ignores.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part is, discovering why you cannot physically be him is actually the most liberating and motivating thing you will hear today.
It really takes the weight off your shoulders.
Yeah.
So let's skip the fluff and dive straight into the foundation of that skyscraper.
Let's do it.
The source material forces us to start with some uncomfortable honesty. He is arguably the greatest bodybuilder in history, sure, but he had an underlying architecture, both genetic and pharmaceutical, that the average person listening to this simply does not possess.
We really have to look closely at that pharmaceutical architecture because it fundamentally changes the biological rules of the game.
Right.
The source material points to his own transparency about this, specifically a 2018 interview where he laid out his competitive peak protocol. We're talking about 100 milligrams a week of testosterone and 15 milligrams a day of Dianabol.
Okay, I want to stop right there and look at those specific compounds, because this is where the conversation usually just stops at, well, he took steroids.
Yeah, people just gloss over it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what is that specific cocktail actually doing inside the human body? If we're going to understand why his routine is impossible for us, we really need to understand the mechanism of what those drugs were doing to his cells.
That is the crucial question. So let's break down the biology a little bit. When a natural lifter trains, they create micro tears in the muscle fiber.
Which is totally normal.
Right. The body then relies on its natural baseline endocrine system to repair that tissue, primarily using natural testosterone, which is, limited.
Yeah, there's a cap on it.
But when you introduce exogenous testosterone combined with an oral compound like Dianabol, you are radically altering the environment. Dianabol specifically is famous for drastically accelerating muscle protein synthesis and nitrogen retention.
And nitrogen retention is critical because protein is the only macronutrient that contains nitrogen, right?
Yes, exactly.
So if the muscle holds more nitrogen, it's holding the primary building block of muscle tissue.
Precisely. The drugs actually bind to androgen receptors inside the muscle cells, basically signaling the DNA to drastically ramp up the production of new protein strands.
Oh, wow.
But it goes beyond just building muscle faster. This chemical environment vastly increases your work capacity and slashes recovery time to a fraction of what a natural body requires.
So you can just keep going and going.
You can. It creates a biological state where the body can endure extreme, punishing tissue damage and neurological stress, and instead of breaking down or entering a catabolic state, it rebuilds almost instantly.
It's a completely different biological engine. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Comparing your natural gym progress to his is not just like comparing a daily commuter sedan to a Formula One car.
Right.
It's more insidious than that. It's like looking at a Formula One car engine and deciding to pour F1 jet fuel into your daily commuter sedan.
Oh, that's a perfect way to look at it.
If you try to run your normal engine at those RPMs with that combustion rate, the engine block doesn't go faster. It melts.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The natural body literally melts down, both neurologically and physically, under that kind of horsepower.
Yeah.
But there is also an important historical context here that the source material emphasizes. In the 1970s, during his prime, these compounds were actually legal.
Which is wild to think about now.
I know. He was using them under medical supervision. And the doses, while massive compared to natural production, were relatively moderate compared to today's standard.
Which is a terrifying contrast. He actually called this out himself in 2022. He was incredibly blunt about the current state of bodybuilding, pointing out that what used to be a relatively safe, medically supervised practice has become a landscape where people are literally dying.
It's really sad.
They are stacking massive amounts of drugs, listening to people he calls charlatans.
And that is the modern tragedy of the mythology. Today, people aren't just taking that moderate stack. They are taking 2, 3, or even 4 times as much.
Just crazy amounts.
Yeah, and utilizing underground labs with zero quality control, mixing compounds that place horrific strain on the cardiovascular system and the liver, his advantage wasn't just the drugs.
Right.
It was the clinical oversight and a genetic structure that responded to those drugs like an absolute sponge without failing.
I do have to ask, though, and this is a question I think a lot of natural lifters struggle with when they hear about the pharmacology. If the drugs are literally altering the DNA signaling to build muscle, why did he even need to train that hard?
It's a fair question.
I mean, couldn't he just do a normal, moderate workout and let the Dianabol do the heavy lifting?
It's a very logical question, but the biology requires a trigger. The androgen receptors in the muscle cells are essentially waiting for instructions.
Okay.
The drugs provide an abundance of raw materials and a heightened capacity to build, but mechanical tension, the actual physical stress of lifting heavy weights, is what signals where to build.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so without the extreme mechanical tension, the body doesn't optimize the pharmaceutical advantage. The drugs raise the ceiling of what is possible, but you still have to push the physical work to reach that new ceiling.
Okay, so the drugs build a massive penthouse, but the training is still the scaffolding.
Exactly.
Which brings us perfectly to the actual training. Because if we understand the F1 engine, we have to look at the track he was driving on.
And it is a crazy track.
It really is. Looking at the source material's breakdown of his peak volume, it is almost incomprehensible. Let's talk about the 702 set trap.
This is where so many incredibly dedicated people get completely crushed. When people search for this blueprint online, they are met with a volume of work that is biologically antagonistic to the natural human body.
Let me just lay out these numbers from the source, because hearing the actual schedule is jarring.
Go for it.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, he is in the gym doing chest, back, and legs. That is roughly 140 working sets in a single session.
Just in the morning.
Right. Then he goes home, recovers, and on those exact same Monday, Wednesday, Friday evenings, he goes back to the gym to do calves and forearms. Another 140 sets.
And alternate days are just as punishing.
Right. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings, it's shoulders and arms. About 94 sets.
Unbelievable.
Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday evenings, back to the gym for calves and forearms again. Another 140 sets, you tally that up, and it is 702 working sets every single week.
We really need to pause and dig into the physiology of why attempting even half of this is an absolute trap for you as a natural lifter.
Yeah, let's break that down.
Modern sports science has heavily investigated the optimal volume for natural muscle hypertrophy. The data consistently shows that natural lifters optimize their growth between 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week.
Per week. And he's doing 140 sets per day. I mean, how does the natural body even react to that kind of discrepancy? What actually happens under the hood if someone tries to copy this?
It comes down to 2 major failure points: central nervous system fatigue and endocrine collapse.
Okay, let's look at the nervous system first.
Sure. So when you lift a weight, your brain sends an electrical signal down your spinal cord through the motor neurons to the muscle fibers. This requires a massive release of neurotransmitters.
Makes sense.
When you push past your natural volume limits, those neurotransmitters deplete. The brain actually institutes a protective governor.
Wait, so the brain just stops sending the signal?
Exactly. It stops sending strong signals. You
Hmm.
start feeling lethargic, your grip strength plummets, and your muscles literally cannot fire with full force no matter how hard you mentally push. That is central nervous system burnout.
Wow, so it's not just that the muscle is physically tired.
Uh-huh.
The electrical grid powering the muscle is experiencing a rolling blackout.
That's a great way to put it. And then you have the endocrine collapse. Heavy training induces physical stress, which causes the body to release cortisol.
And cortisol is bad for muscle, right?
Right, it's a catabolic hormone, meaning it breaks down tissue for energy. In a natural lifter, if training sessions drag on for 2 or 3 hours, cortisol levels skyrocket, muscle breakdown accelerates, and testosterone levels plummet.
Oh, so you're actually going backwards.
Exactly. The pharmaceutical compounds he used artificially suppressed that cortisol response and kept him in an anabolic muscle-building state despite the 702 sets. But for us, if a natural lifter tries that, their cortisol goes through the roof, their body enters a state of panic, and they start losing muscle while accumulating massive joint inflammation.
By week 3 or 4, a natural lifter doing this routine wouldn't just be tired. They would be sick, their joints would be screaming, and they'd likely be weaker than when they started.
They would be completely broken down.
So here's the friction point. If the volume is a biological trap, if attempting this will literally grind a natural body into the dirt, why are we even analyzing his routine?
It's a very fair question.
Is the whole blueprint just a chemical illusion? What is actually salvageable here?
That is exactly where the source material pivots, and it's brilliant. The secret to his success wasn't the sheer number of sets. The volume is impossible.
Right.
But the methodology of how he managed his training is the ultimate transferable secret. The magic wasn't the 702 sets. It was the fact that he meticulously tracked every single one of them.
Tracking. Okay, let's unpack this, because on the surface, writing down your workouts sounds like pretty basic advice.
It does.
But how does that actually alter the physiological or psychological outcome?
It shifts you from passive exercise to active adaptation. The source material highlights that he didn't just go to the gym to sweat, he was creating a data feedback loop.
Oh, I like that term, data feedback loop.
Yeah, he logged his sets, his reps, and the specific weight. This plays into a psychological concept we can call motivation through visibility.
Right, because when you train blind, you're just sort of guessing. You walk into the gym, you pick up a weight that feels heavy today, you do some reps until it hurts, and you leave.
And human memory is incredibly flawed, especially regarding physical exertion.
Oh, for sure.
If you rely on memory, you will naturally gravitate toward what is comfortable. But the body only grows when it is forced to adapt to an uncomfortable, novel stimulus. If you don't know exactly what you did last week, you don't know the threshold you need to cross this week.
It's like trying to navigate across the country without a map or a speedometer. You might be driving really fast, but you have no idea if you're actually getting closer to the destination.
Exactly.
But when you log the data, you get telemetry. You can look at a notebook and say, okay, last Tuesday I squatted 200 pounds for 8 reps. Today, the only thing that matters is getting 200 pounds for 9 reps, or maybe 205 pounds for 8.
And the psychological momentum that generates is profound. When you accumulate undeniable, concrete evidence of your own physical growth, the gym stops being a chore.
It becomes a game, almost.
Yes, it becomes a deeply rewarding practice of progressive mastery. The source material is very clear about this. You do not need 702 sets.
Thank goodness.
You need your natural, optimal 15 to 20 sets per week. But you must track them with the exact same obsession that he tracked his.
And this doesn't require complex spreadsheets. I mean, it's just using the Notes app on your phone or an old notebook. The act of writing it down forces intention.
Absolutely.
Which perfectly bridges us to the actual movements you should be tracking. If tracking is the navigation system, what is the actual route?
Well, the source material outlines a framework of 5 training principles that a natural lifter can safely steal from this map.
And this framework is where the real value lies, because these principles align perfectly with modern sports science for natural hypertrophy. So let's hit the first principle. Compound movement primacy.
Right.
Squats, bench presses, deadlifts, barbell rows, the big multi-joint lifts. I noticed that his routines, despite all the crazy volume, always led with these. He wasn't starting his day with, cable flies.
Never.
But why are these so critical for the natural lifter? Is it just because you can move more weight?
It's about systemic neurological and hormonal stress. A compound movement requires multiple joints and large muscle groups to work in unison.
Huh.
When you perform a heavy barbell squat, you aren't just training the quadriceps, you are forcing the core to stabilize the spine, the upper back to maintain posture, and the central nervous system to coordinate massive motor unit recruitment.
It's a full body event.
Exactly. This creates a systemic growth stimulus that isolation exercises simply cannot trigger. For a busy natural lifter who only has 45 minutes to train, compound movements offer the absolute highest return on investment.
That makes total sense. It's efficiency. You trigger the maximum biological response with a single movement.
Right.
So the second principle is high frequency with managed intensity. Now, this one is interesting to me because he hit every muscle group twice a week. I always assumed that natural lifters needed a full week to recover from a muscle group.
Yeah.
Like the classic, chest on Monday, back on Tuesday split.
That is a very common misconception, but the biology says otherwise. When you train a muscle protein synthesis, the actual building of new tissue spikes.
Right.
But for a natural lifter, that spike only lasts about 24 to 48 hours. After 2 days, the muscle has essentially finished adapting. If you wait an entire week to train that muscle again, you are missing out on multiple opportunities for growth.
Wait, really? So if I do chest on Monday, by Thursday, my chest is just sitting there doing nothing?
Exactly. It has recovered, and it is just waiting for another signal. Training a muscle twice a week provides a more frequent growth stimulus.
That changes everything.
But the catch is the managed intensity part. Because you are training frequently, you do not need to annihilate the muscle in a single session.
So I don't have to destroy it completely.
Right. You stimulate it, let it recover, and stimulate it again. This also utilizes the repeated bout effect, where the muscle becomes more resilient to damage over time, allowing you to train with less extreme soreness.
So frequency over annihilation. I really like that. Which leads us to the third principle, progressive overload. We touched on this with the tracking, but let's go deeper into the actual mechanism of it. Why does adding 5 pounds to the bar literally cause the muscle to change shape?
It comes down to a cellular process called mechanotransduction.
Mechanotransduction.
Got it. Yeah, when a muscle fiber is placed under a load it has never experienced before, the physical tension is translated into chemical signals. The cell detects the structural threat.
Like the threat that the heavy weight might literally tear the tissue apart.
Exactly. In response to this threat, the satellite cells surrounding her muscle fiber fuse with it, donating their nuclei. This allows the muscle fiber to build more contractile proteins, actin and myosin, making the fiber thicker and stronger.
Wow, the body is so smart.
It is. But if you never increase the load, there is no structural threat, no chemical signaling, and zero biological reason for the body to change.
The body is inherently lazy. It only builds muscle if you force it to survive a new environment. That's fascinating.
It really is.
So the fourth principle the source material highlights is exercise variation. He was constantly changing his angles. He'd use barbells, then dumbbells, then cables. I've always been a bit confused by this.
How so?
Well, if the bench press builds the chest, why do I need to use dumbbells? Doesn't the muscle just know it's being pushed?
The muscle only knows tension, but the angle of that tension determines which specific muscle fibers are recruited.
Oh, I see.
A muscle like the pectoralis major is massive, with fibers running in different directions. A flat barbell bench press might heavily recruit the mid and lower fibers, but doing an incline dumbbell press shifts the neurological recruitment to the upper clavicular fibers.
That makes a lot of sense.
Furthermore, variation is crucial for joint and connective tissue health.
Wait, how does it help the joints?
If you perform the exact same biomechanical movement with heavy loads week after week for years, you are repeatedly stressing the exact same tendons and ligaments in the exact same wear pattern.
Oh, yikes.
It's like folding a piece of paper in the same crease over and over. Eventually, it tears. By varying the equipment and angles, you shift the stress slightly, allowing connective tissues to remodel and recover. It helps prevent chronic overuse injuries.
That is a massive insight. We're not just varying exercises for the muscle, we're doing it to protect the joints.
Exactly.
Okay, the fifth principle is the one I find the most psychologically demanding. The mind-muscle connection. He famously talked about putting his mind inside the muscle. But mechanically, what does that actually mean? Is it just visualizing?
It is far more than visualization. It is neurological control. Modern sports science refers to this as internal attentional focus.
Internal attentional focus. Okay.
Let's say you are doing a bicep curl. You can use external focus thinking about moving the dumbbell from your hip to your shoulder. If the weight is too heavy, your brain will naturally recruit surrounding muscles, like your shoulders or your lower back, to heave the weight up.
Because the brain's goal is just to move the object. The classic gym bro swing. We've all done it when we're trying to impress someone with a weight we have no business lifting.
Exactly. We've all been there. But internal focus, the mind-muscle connection, is when you consciously command the motor cortex in your brain to isolate the neurological signal to the bicep.
So you're forcing only that muscle to work.
Yes, you actively contract the bicep to initiate the movement, squeezing it intentionally throughout the entire range of motion. Studies have shown that utilizing an internal focus drastically increases the electromyography, or EMG activity, of the target muscle.
So you are recruiting more muscle fibers using the exact same weight.
Precisely.
It's a difference between just heaving a weight up to get it over with versus actually feeling the specific muscle do the work. We've all rushed through a set just to finish it, but he was intensely present for every single rep.
He was. So those 5 principles, compound movements, high frequency, progressive overload, variation, and internal focus, create a flawless architectural blueprint for a natural lifter.
They really do.
But, as the source material points out, the best blueprint in the world is useless if you don't have the bricks to build it. We have to talk about nutrition.
And looking at his nutrition from the 70s is incredibly refreshing, mostly because it is brilliantly, wonderfully boring.
It is so boring.
It cuts through so much of the neurotic noise we hear in modern fitness culture.
It really does. Modern fitness has become paralyzed by hyper-optimized diets, extreme macro tracking, and complete elimination protocols.
Right. Don't eat carbs, don't eat fat, don't eat at night.
Exactly. But let's look at what he actually did at his competitive peak. The source states he was eating between 3,800 and 5,000 calories a day. He prioritized protein heavily, taking in about 250 grams daily, which aligned with his 250-pound body weight, so roughly 1 gram per pound.
And the foods themselves were completely standard. Meat, eggs, fish, rice, potatoes, oats. He wasn't eating exotic superfoods or subscribing to rigid diet cults.
No, he kept it simple.
He even had weekend cheat meals like pizza and burgers. He just ate a massive amount of whole foods consistently. But I want to be very careful here, because if a natural lifter listening to this tries to eat 5,000 calories a day, they're going to run into a serious problem.
A massive problem. The laws of thermodynamics and nutrient partitioning apply differently based on your endocrine state. He needed 5,000 calories because he was executing 702 sets a week, which demands massive energy expenditure.
Right, he was burning a ton of fuel.
Furthermore, the pharmacology he was utilizing dramatically shifted his nutrient partitioning.
Meaning where the calories actually go once you eat them.
Exactly. In an enhanced state, the body preferentially shuttles excess calories into building muscle tissue. The ceiling for muscle protein synthesis is artificially raised.
But for us.
But a natural lifter has a strict biological ceiling on how fast they can build muscle. If a natural lifter eats a massive surplus of 2,000 extra calories a day, the body maxes out its muscle-building capacity very quickly. The remaining calories have nowhere to go but adipose tissue.
Which is fat storage.
Yes.
So you can't force-feed muscle growth if you are natural. You can't just eat your way past your biological ceiling.
You cannot. For a modern natural lifter, the reality is much more manageable, which should be deeply reassuring. To build muscle naturally, you only need a slight caloric surplus, roughly 300 to 500 calories above your maintenance level.
That's practically just an extra snack.
Exactly. Depending on your size, that usually looks like maybe 2,800 to 3,200 calories. And protein requirements are thoroughly supported by science at 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. You do not need to obsess over perfectly timed protein shakes or monastic deprivation.
That is a huge relief. You really don't have to be perfect. I mean, he built his life around his training, but he had balance. He had a social support system. He enjoyed his meals. He managed his stress.
Yeah, he wasn't miserable.
If you are sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night, managing your stress, hitting a small caloric surplus, and training with those 5 principles, you are doing everything right.
And that brings us to the ultimate reality check of the source material. If you do everything right, if you track obsessively and eat perfectly, what is the actual natural ceiling? What can you realistically expect to achieve?
Let's get into the hard numbers, because defining these expectations is crucial for long-term psychological resilience. If you think you're going to build 50 pounds of muscle in a year naturally, you're going to quit out of frustration by month 6.
Exactly. The science of human physiology gives us a very clear timeline for natural muscle accrual. In the first year of proper, dedicated training, a natural male can expect to build approximately 20 to 25 pounds of muscle.
Wow.
This is the newbie gains phase. Your body is hyper-responsive to the novel stimulus of resistance training because it is so far from its genetic potential.
Which is an amazing transformation. Adding 20 pounds of muscle completely changes how you look and feel,
Yeah.
but then the curve flattens.
It flattens drastically. This is the biological limit of the myonuclear domain. As your muscle fibers get larger, the body becomes more resistant to adding further mass.
So it slows down.
In the second year, that growth drops by half, maybe 10 to 12 pounds. By year 3 and 4, a dedicated natural lifter is fighting tooth and nail to add 5 to 8 pounds of pure muscle tissue annually.
Okay, so let's contrast that with the enhanced numbers the source material provides, just so we understand the gap.
A male utilizing pharmaceutical testosterone can build 40 to 50 plus pounds of muscle in their first year alone.
That's insane.
And they can continue to add 20 to 30 pounds annually in subsequent years. Over his career, he built nearly 100 pounds of muscle, stepping on stage at 250 pounds and roughly 8% body fat.
Two entirely different universes of human physiology. So if someone is listening to this and they've been grinding in the gym for 3 years, and they are only adding 3 or 4 pounds of muscle a year, they aren't failing.
Not at all.
That is not a lack of discipline. That is a perfectly functioning, healthy human biology doing exactly what it evolved to do, which is be efficient, not massive.
And realizing that is the key to unlocking your true motivation. Accepting that you cannot physically become a 1975 Taro. Mr. Olympia is not a reason to quit. It is an invitation to define your own version of elite natural status.
I love that.
Because building 40 to 50 pounds of muscle naturally over a decade of consistent, intelligent training, getting down to a healthy single-digit body fat percentage, achieving elite natural strength benchmarks like a 365-pound bench press or a 495-pound squat. That requires a level of mental fortitude and dedication that commands massive respect.
Absolutely, it does. And that right there is the core of that growth mindset that we can universally adopt from him. He separated his motivation from his feelings.
Yes.
He came from Austria with nothing but barbells and an absolute willingness to endure unglamorous hours of work. He didn't just train when the sun was shining, and he felt perfectly rested.
Nobody feels like that every day.
Right. He trained, whether he felt like it or not. He viewed every single session as a chance to compete against his previous performance. And for anyone listening, that has to be the shift. We have to stop competing against the magazine covers and start competing against the data in our own tracking notebooks.
You are competing against who you were last week. Did you lift a little heavier? Did you recover a little better? That is the path to becoming the absolute best natural version of yourself.
Now, to wrap up this deep dive, we do have to address the darker reality of the mythology, because the source material does not shy away from the long-term consequences of chasing the impossible.
It's a very sobering reality. When people ignore their natural physiological ceilings and turn to the massive amounts of pharmacology we see today, the biological cost is devastating.
It really is.
He himself is actively warning the younger generation. We are seeing young people in their 20s and 30s suffering from massive cardiovascular hypertrophy, kidney transplants, liver toxicity, and severe psychological and hormonal disruption.
And we want to be incredibly clear that our deep dive into the pharmacology today is strictly informational. We are analyzing the biology to explain the history. It is not medical advice, and the risks associated with these compounds are severe and documented. The fitness industry often glorifies the result while hiding the medical toll it takes on the human body.
The health cost of that mythology is profound. But the empowering takeaway here is that you do not have to pay that cost to achieve an incredible physique and robust health.
Exactly. You know, knowledge really is your best personal trainer, and that's what BFit.ai is all about. We try to share everything you need to make fitness and wellness click without having to decipher biological textbooks on your own.
It can be so confusing otherwise.
Oh, definitely. If you want a simple breakdown later to build your own natural, evidence-based routine, there are free articles over there that make all this stuff feel incredibly clear and doable. Things like 5 research-backed ways to build muscle after 40, or 5 forgotten rules that still build muscle, and a personal favorite, rest between sets. 5 things you're overthinking. It's all right there to help you take these exact principles and naturally integrate them into your busy life.
So to synthesize everything we've unpacked today, His peak routine, that 702 set absolute monstrosity, was a product of elite genetics, a specific era, and heavy pharmacology.
You cannot steal his volume.
You cannot steal his ultimate 250-pound stage weight. But you can steal the architecture. You can steal his obsessive telemetry-driven dedication to tracking progression.
The data feedback loop.
Exactly. You can steal his core framework. Heavy compound movements, managed high-frequency progressive overload, variation, and a deep mind-muscle connection. You can adopt his sensible, balanced whole food nutrition, and most importantly, you can emulate his unshakable consistency.
It is about valuing the mindset over the sheer mass of the muscle. And hey, if you're enjoying this deep dive, we'd love it if you hit like or leave a comment wherever you're listening. It really helps us get better at what we do, and honestly, that support is heartwarming. It's what keeps us going and motivates us to keep creating these for you. We love reading your thoughts.
We really do. It means the world to us. As we finish up today, I want to leave you with a final thought, a hypothetical scenario to ponder.
Let's hear it.
If he had been born today with access to all of our modern sports science, optimal natural programming, and advanced recovery metrics, but he chose to remain 100% natural, he wouldn't have been a 250-pound Mr. Olympia. His biology simply wouldn't allow it.
True.
But with his incredibly obsessive mindset, his raw charisma, and his relentless discipline, would he still have found a way to become the most famous name in fitness?
That is a brilliant question,
Yeah.
because it implies that true greatness might just be the software, the mindset, and not the hardware of the muscle at all. The foundation isn't the chemicals. The true foundation is the discipline.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us on Radio BeFit today. Take everything we've talked about, take a deep breath, and realize you don't have to carry the weight of impossible expectations anymore. Maybe just take one small step today. Grab a notebook and write down your next workout. No pressure, no stress. Just you getting slightly better than you were yesterday. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone. Happy lifting.